Imagine being told you cannot buy a bottle of water without someone else's permission. Now imagine living like that for over a decade. This is not just some wild rumor online. This is the reality of one of the biggest pop stars in history. We are talking about Britney Spears. Most people think they know her story. They see the headlines and the fame. But the truth behind her legal situation is far darker than most realize. You need to understand what a conservatorship actually means. It is a very serious legal concept used in the United States. A judge appoints a guardian to manage someone's life. This happens when a person is deemed unable to function independently. They might have physical limitations or mental health struggles. For Britney, this became her reality starting back in 2007. Let's go back to that year for a moment. She walked into a salon in Los Angeles. She asked her bodyguards to close the blinds. She wanted privacy from the prying eyes of the paparazzi. But something went wrong right then and there. One of her own bodyguards intentionally opened those blinds. He did it over and over again. This allowed a hidden photographer to capture her image. It was a moment of betrayal in a private space. Following this, she faced several and very difficult periods. She spent time in rehab, but the situation didn't improve. Her father, Jamie, then stepped in as her legal guardian. He was rewarded with a massive annual sum for his role. This gave him total control over her daily life and assets. Within just months, he took over her entire team. The people she felt threatened by were suddenly back in power. She released a new album and went on a world tour. But there was something strange about these appearances. Every single interview she did was pre-recorded. It was like no one was actually allowed to speak to her. For years, the public just saw what they were told to see. The mystery grew deeper as time went on. Then, in 2019, everything started to change rapidly. A podcast called Britney's Gram received a secret message. It came from a verified source with insider information. This sparked an immediate and massive movement online. People began using the hashtag #FreeBritney to demand her freedom. They realized that she was trapped in a cage of legal rules. Then, something even more shocking happened in court. She had cancelled a residency citing her father's health. However, she later walked into a courtroom with her mother. She claimed she was being held in a facility against her will. It was as if the truth was finally starting to leak out. At the same time, some very disturbing claims came to light. Her father had told a judge she had dementia to get control. The judge then ordered a formal review of the entire conservatorship. Only days later, her primary doctor suddenly passed away. Was that just a coincidence? Or was it part of a larger cover-up? Even more shocking news followed regarding her children. Her sons were eventually granted a restraining order against their grandfather. It was reported that he had been physically abusive toward her eldest son. He then stepped down as her lead conservator citing his health. He replaced himself with an associate who is now facing accusations. The list of things I found while researching this is massive. It would be impossible for me to tell you every single detail here. But some parts honestly made me feel physically sick to read. There were reports of men being paid just to date her. Her children were even used as leverage in legal maneuvers. Think about that for a second. How can someone be told they are unfit to live alone? Yet, she was still expected to perform and release albums. She performed for months in Las Vegas under these conditions. She had to ask permission for the simplest daily tasks. Meanwhile, many celebrities like Miley Cyrus and Paris Hilton spoke out. They stood with her because they saw the truth of her situation. So why did the mainstream media stay so quiet for so long? It makes you wonder who was really pulling the strings behind the scenes. Was it just a legal issue or something much more sinister? The layers of this case are deep and very disturbing to witness. Every time a piece of evidence came out, the truth got clearer. She wasn't just a star, she was a person being controlled. People all over the world joined her fight for independence. They wanted to break the cycle of silence and control. They wanted her to have her life back in her own hands. When you look at the timeline, the patterns become very obvious. The fact that she had to record her interviews suggests a gag order. It means no one was allowed to hear her true voice. For years, the world only heard what they were told to hear. But now, the truth is finally coming out in the light. She even recorded herself asking for help from a lawyer. She described how her father threatened to take her children away. This happened if she ever tried to leave the conservatorship. It was a clear threat to her role as a mother. Imagine having your children held over your head like a weapon. That is what many people believe she faced every single day. The situation is one of the most complex cases in modern history. It involves law, power, and the way fame can be used as a cage. Some say she was being protected from her own choices. Others say she was being harvested for profit by those in power. Either way, the impact on her life was devastating and clear. The movement to free her became a symbol of independence. It showed that people care about what happens behind the curtain. They saw the signs and they refused to stay silent anymore. Every time a new fact came out, it shocked the public. Each revelation added another layer to the mystery of her life. People are still talking about this case today for many reasons. It serves as a warning about the power of legal systems. It shows how easily someone can be lost in the system's gears. She was trapped in a situation that lasted for over 13 years. She couldn't buy what she wanted or go where she chose. Yet, the world watched her perform on big stages and tours. The contrast between her public life and private reality is haunting. It makes you wonder how many others are living like this today. We are looking at a very complex web of contracts and laws. But underneath it all was one woman just trying to find peace. The fact that she finally spoke out was a massive victory. It took a lot of brave people to bring her story to light. They fought through the silence and the complicated legal hurdles. Now, the world knows the truth about what happened behind those doors. She is no longer the mystery she was forced to be for years. People are still shocked by the sheer scale of the control. The realization that it was all documented makes it even harder. It wasn't just a misunderstanding or a small mistake in judgment. It was a systemic issue that lasted for more than a decade. Every headline and every court date led us closer to her truth. Some people still think this is all just a big rumor online. But the documents and the testimonies prove it was very real. The reality of her life changed so much after she broke free. She is finally making her own choices in her daily life now. That is why the movement became so popular across many platforms. People saw a hero fighting against a system that tried to erase her. It is important to remember how long this process actually took. It wasn't an overnight change but a years-long battle for justice. Every fact we uncovered made the situation seem more intense. The story of her life is now one of courage and survival. She fought through the cameras and the lawyers and the contracts. She did it all while being told she couldn't do anything at all. That is what makes her story so incredibly powerful to hear. It shows that your voice matters even when they try to mute you. It shows that truth eventually finds its way into the light of day. The investigation was long and filled with many strange turns. But every turn led back to the same central point of control. She was being held in a situation that no one should ever face. No one should be denied their basic rights for anyone's benefit. Now, when we look back at those old videos we see more. We see a woman who was fighting to be seen and heard again. The mystery is gone because she finally told her own story. It took the world watching to make that change happen. Every person who shared a post helped her find her voice back. This case changed how people look at celebrity and legal rights forever. It remains one of the most discussed cases in modern pop culture. Do you think it was just a misunderstanding or was it intentional?